Well, I think this is probably as good a segue as anything to talk about Chris leaving the internet. I mean, I'll let Chris kind of talk about his feelings probably like right after before this, but for anyone who's unaware, this probably isn't his last podcast, but it's his last like full-time podcast appearance. Maybe we'll get him on a couple times during the season, maybe in the summer if some stuff that we're working on comes through.
We're gonna let the lawyers figure it out.
Yeah, we'll let our people at PwC handle that. But if so I just wanted to kind of give open the floor to anybody who wants to say anything because I have a lot I want to say. But Chris will be leaving the podcast, and obviously Chris and Rob have created this and created such a great space, not just for Villanova basketball, but for Big East basketball and for college basketball and for people to feel community, which has been absolutely huge. That's not why they started it. They just wanted to talk some shit about basketball and how it's grown over the years alongside the program growing, and has been such a cool thing to see and a cool thing to then become a part of as it's grown. So, Chris, I'll let you take the floor about what you want to say just to start. Actually, no, I want you to go last. That probably makes the most sense. Trevor, I'll pass it along to you, and then
Yeah, I mean, Tommy and Chris Nataro jumped in, but as we started this, I was kind of looking around. I was like, yeah, this is Chris's baby. His not the one that's arriving that's making him leave the pod, but the one that he and Rob had a vision, or maybe they didn't, I don't know, back in the day. And we were all kind of fortunate enough to either stumble into it or find it by overwhelming social media popularity. And it was just always something that I enjoyed listening to. I would look forward to it as I think they started my junior year. So it was something that I look forward to listening to, walking to class, driving somewhere. And the reason that I think it really took off was the discourse that you guys had off air. Just the community that you kind of built on Twitter and the people that we regularly interact with, have kind of made it special. And to be able to be, kind of tapped on the shoulder a little bit to help try to continue that and be a part of it is something that I will take lightly just because I'm a funny guy. I'm going to say I take it lightly, but I take it seriously. I really appreciate the opportunity that you and Rob and Brian and Willie had given me and helped me along this year and just enjoyed the conversations. And I know this isn't the end of those conversations, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know we're going to fight in the group chat later, but this is it's been a fun time. So
I'm laughing at this comment.
I'm not even looking at it.
I'm laughing at the comment.
Thought I left you speechless. Yeah, no, that's a good one, Joe Ross.
I'll go next. First, I have to say I'm not altogether convinced that this isn't a Jay Leno situation. So I think we'll be seeing plenty from Chris on the
like too much of them.
Yeah.
Like he'll start a podcast that starts at 8:26.
I'm waiting until like the Friday or Saturday night at like 2:30 a.m. Eastern time when Chris is like, screw it, I'm taking back over Full 40 Twitter. Like permanently, not just for the night. Yes. So I think the jury's still out on the Jay Leno situation. Number two, I think we all have to appreciate that whatever Chris and Rob created with the Full 40 here has turned into probably the most active group text chain I have in my phone on a day-to-day basis. That's
a lot because of Brian, though.
That's a lot of Trevor and Brian just going back and forth. It could be on the side.
I'll stop talking.
You'll be in like a meeting or two in your day job. You'll come out of like 60 minutes away from your phone and you'll have like 90 messages. And it's, Brian jumping around between Transformers and basketball and so all good stuff there. But I think lastly, in a more heartfelt way, I remember running into Chris and Rob at the 2018 Final Four in San Antonio, like the Villanova, like big party. And they had been at it for, I mean, maybe a year at that point. I forget, what year did you start, Chris? Did you start?
No, we started it that year.
So what, shout out on that timing, by the way. But I remember just sort of running into them. I hadn't seen either of these guys in a long time. And it was just like, I was such a fan of what they were doing. Fast forward to the pandemic when I started to, I'm the only idiot in the world that was thinking I would do a pregame show because I had to sign up to be there 15 minutes live before every game. Chris and Rob were super supportive from day one, and kind of brought me into the fold here, and really happy that we've had the chance to kind of reconnect and do this, and a good reason to kind of stay in touch. As I know, we tell people we were roommates when we lived in London. That was 16 or 17 years ago. 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Tommy wasn't even
our
born
junior year at Nova, and now fast forward, married, kids, and got this little side hobby going on the side. It's good reason to stay in touch. So I really appreciate it, and just happy to be here.
Yeah, and I'll clear the floor for Willie and Brian before you go, Chris. But I've been a fan, as you know, of the Full 40 long before I was lucky enough to be able to be a part of this insider network here with you guys. And there's a lot of thank yous that I want to give you for being a mentor, being a friend along the way. And I haven't known you as long as some of the other guys, and I just appreciate everything you've done for the culture on Villanova Twitter and the space that you've built, and putting up with me in the group chat with my Sixers bit. I think this would be a good time to break it. You're actually the last person to know, Chris. That was all a bit. The rabid Sixers fan, everybody in here knows except for you. And there were times
he cared like very little about it.
And he had to remind me like a half a dozen times when I got riled up about something he said as like a Knicks fan. He'd be like, "Dude, remember, it's a bit."
And to text him outside the group chat. But yeah, we wanted to see how riled up we could get you, and I think it worked. I think it was a good bit. But yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. Just thank you for everything you've done. This has been a great ride, and I know you won't go too far. I hope to still see many pictures of food you send in the group chat and on your personal Twitter and things along those lines. So for me and for a bunch of people who haven't got to know you personally, thank you for everything you've done.
Brian, do you want to go or me?
You go.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, this is I'm pretty bummed that you're going to be out. This has been a lot of fun for me just joining the podcast 2 years ago. Anyone who's ever seen my Twitter, I just tweet my thoughts. And if I'm thinking about Villanova basketball, I'm tweeting about Villanova basketball. If I'm thinking about being sad, I'm tweeting about being sad. If I'm thinking about anything, it's just Twitter is where I go to put my thoughts out. And having the Full 40 reach out and be like, "Hey, we love your thoughts. We want you to be on this podcast." I was like, "Oh, that'll be fun." And it has been. It's been such a ride despite the status of the team. Do I feel partially responsible for the status of the team? Yeah. We were on a Final Four, and then I hopped on the podcast, and it's been 2 average years since then. That's kind of a bummer. But in all honesty, like, that opportunity has been a lot of fun for me. And then pretty early on in that process, you kind of like let me know that you were thinking about leaving. Rob is the same thing about leaving, and just kind of like thinking about that. So I've had about 2 years to get ready for it, and I'm still not really fully ready. But this is just something that like I hold so near and dear to my heart. One, the podcast, but 2, just Villanova. I think I went on that rant like 5 months ago. Villanova's been one of the biggest things in my life. A lot of the good of my life comes from Villanova, and this podcast is part of the good of my life. And I owe that to Chris for taking that opportunity to give me the chance to be a part of that. And not just about the podcast, but like we keep talking about this group chat. Like, this is my most active group chat as well. Like, I talk to you all more, like a lot of even if it's not about serious stuff, it is about nonsense. We're mispronouncing names on purpose, which is Brian special. that group chat's there, and like Chris has become not just like a podcast host, but a true friend and someone that I actually trust. Unlike Trevor, who I do not trust. So that's a whole thing we have to figure out.
I've given you no reason to trust him.
But I'm genuinely honored to take this and take care of Chris's baby. And it's not going to be the same. It's going to be different, but it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It doesn't mean it's going to be like weird. It's just Trevor and I are going to be different than Chris. I'm not going to try and be Chris. That's just not who I am. But Chris's ability to create this community on like online and connect with not just Villanova people, but like Big East people is genuinely a special thing. Like, I think everyone who's listening to this like needs to take a step back and recognize like this is a person who's doing something genuinely special in the media world and just like the public relations, whatever you want to call it. He's doing something genuinely special there. This isn't just a bit on Twitter. This is someone who has a skill that is really, really good at this skill. And we've joked about it, but I'm like, if he wanted to go after something bigger, he could do that and he would crush it. So I'm really excited for you, obviously, from a personal standpoint with the whole family and everything that's going on in your life. I would be more sad if I thought I would never hear from you again, but I know you're just going to be in the group chat. That you're not leaving the group chat. We're not kicking you out unless you decide to leave yourself. So, I mean, I'm just thankful for the opportunity. Thankful that we get to continue to talk about Villanova basketball. I mean, this is a basketball game of a school that we either went to or love. And I'm honored to be in a position to like carry that mantle, but that mantle was created because of the work that you and Rob had done. And it's just an honor to be a part of it. So thanks, Chris.
I should have gone before Willie. Mine's not going to be that good. No, so I started as a listener, just like everybody. I was sitting on a train and I was like, I wonder if there's any podcasts about Villanova. And there was 3. And to be honest, 2 of them sucked. And I thought Chris and Rob were good. And I remember being like, oh, this one. And like within a couple minutes, like, this one's cool. Like, this is kind of what I want. I want it to be more laid back. And it was something I seeked out in a moment. Listened, whatever. Joined a couple years ago. We've talked about that. But more to echo Willie's point, Chris has probably been my favorite adult friend I've met over the last 7 or 8 years, maybe longer. But if you saw us in our group chat, we argue more than him and I specifically argue on almost everything. But if you know us, we basically agree on most things basketball, politics, things like that. Like, we agree on a lot of things. I just like arguing with people, and Chris has kind of seen that, and I have a really good time talking to him. And I think if you didn't know us, you would think we either didn't get along or didn't agree with each other. But I like fighting with someone I agree with because it sharpens my skills. So I am sincerely going to miss Chris. But the reason I think I'm not being as heartfelt as Willie is like I said, yeah. I mean, this isn't my most active group chat. This is like 2 or 3. But that's not going to change, and that's what I like better anyway. Like, I'm going to miss him on the show. I'm going to miss the prep work he does and all the work he does outside of just the podcast. But we're not losing Chris as a friend. We're not losing Chris who we're talking to. Like, that to me is more important anyway. So it's why I'm not as sappy, but I get everybody's point because I'm also going to miss him as well. So obviously thank you to him and Rob, and it was great to join. And yeah.
Stinks for everybody else who doesn't get to text Chris all day like we do. But
I could leak the chat too.
Oh boy. Well, thank you. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was getting the roast of Chris Bellotti here. But